Conscious channeling is, what I utilize, and I am fully in my body. I'm fully aware of everything going on around me. I can hear I close my eyes when I channel, but I can hear things. I know what's happening when my dogs start barking. I'm aware of that. I start to feel the stress of that. I'm inhabited here. Nothing is coming in to visit me or inhabit me. So when we go to soul, we get the answers we need, the answers that will support healthy relationships, the answers that can support transformation.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Welcome everyone to Higher Journeys. I am your host, Alexis Brooks. So delighted always to have you join me today. I'm delighted. I've been having a lot of first-time guests these days, and I'm certainly delighted to have this beautiful woman on the show today. You can't see her right now, but you will shortly. Her name is Stephanie Banks. She is what you call a conscious channel, and we're going to get into what that might be as opposed to a non-conscious channel or an unconscious channel. Kind of being funny about that. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about something that's not funny at all, and yet it's inspiring. We're going to be talking about the exponential rise of numbers when it comes to cases of dementia and Alzheimer's happening to younger people. I actually know someone who's suffering from it now that's quite young. But all is not lost. I know that family members are, many of them, much of them are in shambles, trying to figure out where to go, how to deal with something like this. An elusive area of reality. And yet, Stephanie and the work that she's done in her channeling is going to talk about her journey and how she opened up new vistas as to how we might deal with our loved ones in this very unique state. So without further ado, let me welcome Stephanie Banks. Thank you so much, my dear, for coming on this important day.
Thank you, Alexis. I appreciate you inviting me here.
Well, it's my pleasure. We have a lot to get to, and I know I came on sounding a bit not somber but serious because I my audience knows I like to be fun, and I know you're funny too, so we'll put some fun into this too. But we are talking about a serious subject, but this is going to bring some light to an otherwise heavy topic. I think the best thing for us to do is to begin at the beginning in terms of your discovering your abilities as a channel, and then perhaps segueing into what we're talking about here, the focus being dementia.
Sure. I'll start by defining channeling as it relates to me, because I know we all have a different understanding of it. But when I talk about channeling, I'm talking about connecting to divine energy and wisdom. And that's something that's within all of us. It's not something that I go outside of myself to grab and bring in. It's just a way that I have learned how to get out of my way, how to get more still, how to open up energy portals, if you will, and receive communication that will serve in the highest way. So was not born doing this. I didn't know about it until well into my adulthood. I had a dear friend who was a very gifted channel. And when she first shared this gift with me, I was completely gobsmacked. I could
Mm.
not believe she was able to bring forward messages from souls that are on the planet, souls on the other side, questions that you could ask. And I was completely taken with how she did that. And in the course of my friendship with her, I was dealing with my mother's dementia. My mother had a type of dementia that affects younger people. It's called frontotemporal dementia, but there are so many different types of dementia. I've lost count now. And at the time, we didn't know for years what she actually had, because at that time they were not so good about pinpointing the different diagnostics on it. They knew it wasn't Alzheimer's. It didn't fit into that category, but she had personality changes and memory lapses and some very strong mood shifts, anger, rage, frustration. It was a while before it started to affect like her speech and language, which I am very well trained for, because my clinical background is as a speech language pathologist. But I was finding that my adult relationship with my mother was so very frustrating with dementia on board. We were not understanding each other. She had no patience. I was having less and less patience. Things weren't making sense to her. She wasn't processing information. And even though I had all this clinical background, oh, the mother-daughter relationship is a complex one, and so it's just different when I was trying to apply what I knew clinically to my mother, who would have none of it. So I asked my dear friend, could you please channel my mom's soul? I feel like I am falling far short of what I'm supposed to be for her, or how I can show up to this relationship with my full heart, and with less frustration and irritability around her. So my friend channeled my mom's soul, and I got to ask the questions I had, which were the ones I just mentioned, as well as, what do you need from me? Um, what's the nature of your relationship with dad, and how can I support that, or am I in the way of that, or what does that look like? What are you experiencing when you go into a dazed sort of state and you look like you're somewhere else and we try to bring you back? What's that like for you? And I got to hear from her soul.
Wow.
Yeah. And it enlightened me in ways that made me write a book about it. And it also shifted our relationship into such a different direction that by the time she passed, which was 11 years ago, but this was, 15 years of dementia that we walked with. By the time she passed, I can say I had a beautiful, loving, peaceful relationship with her, and it wasn't looking like we were going to have that at some points.
You never want to lose any loved one, but particular a mother and a mother-daughter dynamic. I understand. Mine's been gone almost 30 years now, and it's still difficult. But being that you had this absolutely extraordinary journey, Stephanie, for a number of years with the channeling of her soul, did it help soften, or I don't know if that's the right word to use, once she did cross over, did it help to um, help the pain? I guess there's no other way to say it. How did it help shift your attitude about the idea of death in general, I
Yeah.
suppose?
Well, totally, totally and completely. It changed my notion, understanding, and fear of death, which I just don't have anymore. So
Mm.
after my friend channeled my mom and I saw what it did for us, I decided I have to learn how to do this for myself, and my relationship. So I took a lot of trainings, and I put in, hundreds and thousands of hours of practice, and I learned how to get clear. And this, one of the things that was most useful to me as I was developing this skill, which I do believe we can all have if we're willing to invest the time and the practice to developing it, is that my relationship with my mom wasn't going to end when she left her body. In fact, it's the best it's ever been, now that she doesn't have the body and the personality, being encumbered by those. But I knew that if I could, if we could spend some of this time understanding each other in this way, and I could make some adjustments to my behaviors and the way I'm communicating and connecting to her, then we might be able to sort out a different type of relationship. And that's what we were able to do. One of the wonderful things about dementia is that there is memory loss. I know that sounds crazy to say, but if we had a terrible interaction, wait a couple minutes.
Right.
She's not going to
Right.
remember that. We can start fresh, start over. I could use humor at every turn. Be silly, be light, be goofy. Just pick up her hands and um, start dancing with her, and that would change a mood. And so there are some things that you can do to stay connected to someone who's going through this very individual experience, because it's a very inward experience a lot of times, to engage with them. That's not intrusive, that's playful, that's fun, that's enjoyable, and allows for you to maintain the connection or establish the type of connection you want to have. I don't know if that answered your question. So you
That
can
and
be
more. That and
okay.
more. That's I love it. Well, as you're talking, of course, I'm like, okay, I remember to ask this question, that question. Here's a question that somewhat relates to what you just said, Stephanie. Thank you for that. I heard you say in another interview, you gave sort of a composite of what the individual that's going through this scenario. I'm not going to call it an affliction because I think it's a lot more than we think and may not be a bad thing. Hence the reason you have a philosophy or an idea through your channeling about how they're feeling when they're in that state. Do you know what I mean? You've spoken
Mhm.
about that before.
Yes, and I, of course, can only speak for the channeled messages I've received from my mother and those that I have other, clients, family members who I've channeled. So I would say everybody's experience of everything is individual to them.
Sure.
So this is not a blanket statement. But what I have learned through channeled messages and also from connecting to my mom on the soul level is that, for example, when she would space out and look like she's totally disconnected from her surroundings.
Mhm.
And my mind would go to, oh, bring her back. We're losing her. Mayday, come bring her back into the conversation. She let me know through channeling that she's actually doing some traveling then. She is in a different realm, a different space. That's why it looks like it does. And just because I don't know what her internal experience is doesn't mean that she doesn't want to have it or want to be permitted to be in that state. So she had kind of told me it's very jarring for her when I, put a hand on her shoulder or say, mom, hey, mom, look over there, this is going on, or so and so just said that. It's very jarring when you are in your own, let's just say we're having a daydream about something
Mhm.
and someone's like, come back, you have to be in the reality. Why? She was asking me, why do I have to be in your reality? Why can it also not be okay for
Right.
me to go elsewhere? It's not uncomfortable for her. It was not uncomfortable. It was somewhat enjoyable.
Were you able to get insight from her about where or in what state she was in dimensionally at
Mm.
times?
That's a good question. I would have to dust off the memories here to see where she was going. I believe that some of her travels involved those who she loved dearly who were on the other side, most specifically her father. He passed away while she was pregnant with me, and it was a shock because it
Mm.
was a heart attack, very unexpected, and she never quite well, you don't get over something like that.
No, right.
So I feel like part of her visits, or yeah, that's what I'll call them, when she didn't look like she was here because she wasn't, was her interacting with or receiving loving energy from those beings, her father included, that she needed to have as support. And,
Mhm.
when you talk about end of life stuff, it's not unusual for someone who is close to their transition to see
That's
their
right.
loved ones present,
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
yeah. So, why would it be unheard of or even unacceptable for her in a different brain state to be making those contacts?
No
And
question. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I offline we were talking about a couple of situations I'm dealing with by virtue of friends right now that are dealing with loved ones with dementia. And I was just saying to one of the friends whose mother's going through, I would say, end stages at this point, about because she's starting to talk about being, where's your father? And the father's been
Mhm.
gone for a few years, and then she'll come back and say, "Oh, I just saw I just saw dad," or again seeing and interacting with loved ones that have gone on. This is so common, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Deathbed visions, I think they call it sort of colloquially. So yeah, no, it would make perfect sense that
Yes.
in this state this too could happen.
Yes. And what I would say to that is it's so much more useful to join them there than to drag them back to where we are. And if someone is at, whether it's dementia, whether it's end of life symptoms, seeing and talking to loved ones who are on the other side, don't you kind of want to know what they're saying? Don't you
Yeah.
want to ask? And so there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with saying, "Oh, did you see Dad? What did he say? How did that feel? What was that like?" Join. This is why my book title is Joining Joanie,
Ah,
because so much of dementia and the way those outside of the experience of the person having dementia, The way we manage it is we try to reorient them. No, it's not Sunday. Today's Wednesday. Repeat after me. It's Wednesday. How ridiculous. Who cares? If my mom would sometimes ask for her jacket, and we live in Florida and it's 98 degrees. Does it make sense for me to argue with her? You can't wear a jacket. It's, of course you can wear a jacket. You'll wear it until you start sweating, and then I'll hold the jacket for you as we walk outside. So there's so many points that we can choose to join the person that we love instead of any other option.
Mm-hmm. It just goes to show you how we are so, while we're in the corporeal state, so rooted in this is all there is. Even for those of us that are believe in a hereafter, we're ego. We're operating from that basis. No, it is not Saturday. It's Wednesday. Damn it, you know. Um, and as a matter of fact, sometimes I lose track of what day it is. So, for what reason? But in all seriousness, are we all at some level traversing different dimensions, even in nanoseconds, you know?
Yes.
Something, yeah, yeah. Something that you said just a moment ago, Stephanie, in terms of your saying to your mom, tell me what dad said. I love that. It's almost as if these individuals could have the capacity to be mediumistic for you,
Mm, yeah.
right?
Yes.
How
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't, she was not, my mother was not able to report other than our channeled communication. She would not verbally report to me, this is where I'm going, or this is what I'm seeing, or this is who I'm
Right.
communicating with. I'm just encouraging all of us that if you are in that position and someone you love is sharing with you that they're having an experience that's different from something you understand or expect, be curious, lean into that, ask for more, see if you can share in that with them, and really encourage it, because every time we can encourage more depth of connection, that's just going to enhance the relationship that we have.
Absolutely. Well, again, this whole idea of using the fine art and science, I suppose, of channeling to reach a loved one, regardless of the state of, in this case, dementia they're in, um, to be able to carry on a communication, obviously at a higher level. I mean, are we talking about higher self to higher self? Tell me a little bit more about how this works when that's happening.
Yeah, so I will acknowledge that there's still a ton of mystery to this that I don't know. But the way that I first experienced my mother's soul channeling through my friend was, it's kind of like she was inviting my mother's essence to share through her verbally with words and language and voice, how what was most important for me to know based on the questions that I was asking. And
Mm-hmm.
then my friend would bring that through her, the system that she, her openness to channeling, and just give over to the words and the language coming through. That's also how I learned to channel. It's kind of like I make an agreement with my guides that I'm going to step aside, I'm going to move. Please borrow my vocal mechanism, my articulators, my imagination. A lot of this happens in the
Mm.
imagination, because how else can I see the imagery that's not like coming through my ocular system, and my understanding, and also beyond my understanding, to bring that forward. So when I am channeling, I am basically going blank, kind of, in terms of what I think I know. I always
Mm.
ask my guides to please suspend any of my biases, my unrecognized or recognized prejudice, anything I think that I have a grasp or understanding on, so that I can be open to what's actually there. And then the messages come through quickly. They come in full run-on sentences. Sometimes I will be channeling for minutes and minutes and minutes, and then finally come up for a sip of water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much that has come through. And along with that has been pictures and images and scenarios, almost movies, that I'm able to see, that lends itself to a deeper understanding of what is coming through.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now you call yourself both an intuitive channel and a conscious channel. I have somewhat of an understanding of what a conscious channel is, but maybe you could explain to the audience, for those that may not know, some of the different iterations of the channeling state.
Yeah. Well, really, it's not conscious versus unconscious. I
I was
don't.
being kind of facetious
Yeah.
on that one.
Okay, no, but I want to clarify that because it
Yeah,
makes sense that it would sound like an either or.
right.
It's really conscious channeling versus trance channeling.
Yes. Yeah.
And so conscious channeling is, what I utilize, and I am fully in my body. I'm fully aware of everything going on around me. I can hear I close my eyes when I channel, but I can hear things. I know what's happening when my dogs start barking. I'm aware of that. I start to feel the stress of that. Um, I'm inhabited here. Nothing is coming in to visit me or inhabit me. That's just
Hmm.
the way that I learned to do this and the way that I prefer to do this. And then there are people who do trance channeling,
Hmm.
who do feel almost the inhabitation of their physicality with an energy or a soul or an entity that comes in and gives information as well, also provides sensation and um, physical manifestation of certain things. So those are kind of the two that are used in terms of languaging what
Hmm.
type of channeling.
Yeah. I've seen several, more than several, quite a few different styles of channeling, both in person and otherwise. Daryl Anka, I'm sure you know the
Mhm.
great work of Bashar. Daryl's been a dear friend for many years, and we've had many conversations about it. Of course, his would be considered more of a trans
Mhm.
channeling. And then, of course, the wonderful Seth material, which I studied many years ago, and looking at the extreme sort of contortions of Jane Roberts, and not only did the cadence of the voice change, but the expressions. And Stephanie, in some cases, I'm sure you know this, physical appearance can change, including eye color.
Wow.
Oh
It's
yeah.
wild, isn't it? It's wild.
Isn't it something, which can bring you down a whole other rabbit hole as to what really is a physical body and how malleable it is in certain states and conditions. Well, but getting back to this idea of channeling the living, particularly with those that have, let's say, a nonverbal or a verbal incapacitation, it's not. I would imagine this would apply to other conditions, like perhaps autism, or those in a coma, or those who've had a stroke, anything, or aphasia. My grandmother had aphasia due to multiple strokes many, many years ago. Let's talk about that. Does it vary in terms of how this could be applied, or no?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's endless application when you go to the soul level of
Hmm.
communication. And it's the most reliable way I know now that I know how to do it and how to elicit it, to get to the truth and the deep love that's really there between us all the time, but that it can be easy to not recognize or not feel because of someone's maybe deficits or deficiencies or inabilities. So yes, you're right. You can channel anyone. You can channel anyone, whether they have something going on with the brain, whether they're in a coma, whether they're nonverbal. I channel for a number of families who have children with autism to
Oh,
help them understand what their child needs from them. Sometimes it's an adult child, and where they can step aside, and let that individual have more of their autonomy, and where they are needed more to be more hands-on or more involved. What that soul is here for, this is what all of us really want to know as parents. We're like, what are you here to do?
mhm,
And how do I help you? And do you want my help? And am I helping you too much, too little? Right?
mhm.
These are the questions, regardless of if we have children with special needs or certain circumstances. So when we go to soul, we get the answers we need, the
Mhm.
answers that will support healthy relationships, the answers that can support transformation, the answers that can support a soul accomplishing what they came here to do, and us being facilitators of that.
We are living at a time of great challenge and incredible opportunity. A time when taking life into our own hands, charting our own course, and finding our own answers is more accessible than ever before. During this time, you may be asking yourself, what am I called to do? What if I could discover not only my own inner healing power, but help others all over this planet discover theirs? We all have the ability to heal ourselves, but it takes a special approach, a unique approach. Quantum healing hypnosis technique, also known as QHHT, a method developed by pioneering hypnotherapist and past life regression expert Dolores Cannon, is the approach that thousands have used and taught to access the deeper aspect of the self for healing at the core level. We all have the ability to tap into the higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness, and we have the means to help others to do the same. QHHT is designed to help the individual access the subconscious, the storehouse of all information, through visualization at the deepest level imaginable, a process that Dolores Cannon discovered and refined during her decades of working with individuals from around the globe. Training with QHHT will provide the guidance and give you the tools to help others tap that incredible force within. Now, you can access this exclusive training online, bringing the tools needed right to you so you can assist others in finding their own answers and achieve total healing. This is powerful and needed now more than ever. Be a part of the pioneering work and legacy of Dolores Cannon by learning QHHT. Start today by clicking on the link in the description of this show to get started. And when you do, don't forget to mention Higher Journeys to get a 10% course discount when you sign up. It's time we all take back control of our lives and chart the course for success at every level. It's time to discover the power of quantum healing hypnosis technique by helping others to help themselves. And by doing this, we are helping to heal the world. That's huge. As you're running through all this, I'm just thinking about the cornucopia of issues due to lack of communication, whether it's with someone that has a verbal incapacity or a child, let's just say that, we're living in an era, and I say child going all the way up to early 20s, really, with let's just say multiple distractions that are inhibiting communication with real communication with a parent or other family members. So when you say anyone, that means anyone, right? Any and everyone.
Teenagers, right? Teenagers, that's like an affliction of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. They think we have the affliction, but yeah.
I have a couple of those. And communication can sometimes not be present, verbal communication. So you want to connect through the heart. You want to connect in other ways.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, actually 2 questions, if I can remember. Question number 1, if you're communicating with someone at a soul level, and let's say it's somebody that does not have a verbal incapacity, issue, will they at some level recognize, or not even at some level, even consciously, maybe come back and say, Mom, did you just send me a message? Or is there an acknowledgement on their end? Can there be?
It's such a good question. To date, nobody has said to me, oh, by the way, I felt you channeling me.
And how dare you?
Right. And right, exactly. I used to, when I was married, my husband at the time would say, when I would go out to do channeling groups, he would say, don't you dare bring my soul into this. Don't you dare channel me in that group. So it was kind of a joke. He was serious, but to me,
I'm sure.
So the beauty of the channeling and the way that I've learned it, which is with very, very good boundaries and of the highest loving service, is that souls don't come through if they don't want to. Mm-hmm. So, and nothing is going to be revealed in the way that I channel that is going to be harmful or exploitative in any way. It is always, like you beautifully said in the very beginning of before we started recording, this beautiful blessing of may it be in the highest service and serve the highest good of all.
Yeah.
That's the foundation of why to channel, because we can get all sorts of low vibe stuff. I mean, right? That's what social media seems to be really affording, and any other avenue we could choose. But to go to that place of pure love, of fifth dimensional unity consciousness, that's sacred, and a soul usually will want to come through to contribute to that.
Beautifully said. And that makes perfect sense, because the next question, and I think you pretty much answered it, is permissions, essentially. But you articulated that well. Look, if this is for the highest good of all involved, and the soul on the other end is willing, those two things being in place, then it will happen. And I guess that would take care of the permissions, if you will.
That's right.
Wow.
And sometimes souls do opt out for whatever reason. I don't need to know a reason, but what will happen is that if the soul is like, yeah, no, thank you, I'm not coming through in this manner, they will
Mm.
send guides on their behalf. So
Wow.
we will still get the information and insight and support we need that serves the highest good. It just may not be directly from that particular soul. And I'm always told or shown when some energy is moving aside, and then spirit guides are coming in to provide what's being requested.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You said something, I thought I had asked this before, but maybe not, or maybe the answer was not what I was looking for in terms of the mindset of the individuals that are going through this.
Mm.
I'll give you a little hint because you'll know what I'm talking about. You said something like, you would assume that they're in pain, as an example, or assume that they're uncomfortable or frustrated. And in some cases, maybe they are, but oftentimes they're not. It might even be the opposite of what we're assuming. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that? I'm trying to throw
I
the little
mean,
fishing line out there because you talked about this before.
yes, and honestly, we can apply this to everybody in our lives because we make so many assumptions in a minute's time. This person must be thinking that, feeling
Mm,
that, making this judgment, whatever, whatever. And then before we're even aware, our behaviors are lining up in agreement with that presumption that could be so wrong. And the problem is that we don't check. We don't check we don't fact check. Are you feeling like this? No, actually, I'm not feeling like that at all. I'm feeling like this. Oh my gosh, I just made up a whole story in 30 seconds about how you hate me because I did this or didn't do that or said this the wrong way.
wow.
Awful.
We all do
so,
that.
so yes, we
Mhm.
all do that. And so when it comes to a person who may not have the same facility with expression for reasons occurring in the brain, it's so much easier to apply the story that you are thinking
Mhm.
internally to them. It must be like this for them. And because you don't always, like with my mom, I couldn't say to her, is this what you're thinking or is this what you're feeling? Because she didn't always have the ability to even comprehend that what I was saying. So I had to just not know. It's like this great unlearning when you are communicating with or sharing space or exchanging with someone. Is what can I unlearn that I think I know, or brought into this belief about you, about us, about what your current present experience is. Because what she had illuminated to me through the channeling was that I'm not. Sometimes it looked like she was scared, and sometimes it looked like she was furious with rage, and not knowing, not having a context for that, because with dementia you'll often never know what the context is, if the person was thinking a thought before or if there was an impulse of pain in their body somewhere and they're just
Mhm.
having a reaction to it. But she was really helping me to see that her experience was not what I was presuming it to be. And so please allow, as long as she was safe to do so, her to have that experience. And she wouldn't necessarily express pleasure in the same way she would. Like if she was, say, engaging with her father on the other side, it doesn't mean that she would be smiling and peaceful and, at peace and joyful. It could look like a number of different things because there are so many factors that are impossible to tease out.
Mhm. And so many dynamics in a relationship. She could have been having an argument with her with her father. I mean, really,
Yeah, yeah,
wow, so many things to think about. Look, I think, Stephanie, if this conversation teaches us one thing, and it's taught me a lot already, it's to just stop assuming. You know what they used to say? I don't know
yes.
if you're old enough to remember that old
What
saying.
assume does, yes.
What assume does. We can say this on this venue. You make an ass out of you, M-E.
That's right. My mom taught
And
me
it's
that
true.
actually.
Yeah. It's true, and we need to
Yeah.
kind of step back, and it can be so hard. I think I told you offline that I'm not dealing. I know two people who are dealing with relatives right now, one young and one is elderly, with dementia, both late stage dementia. And one of the things that have come up is I won't say the person's name, but this young man, young, he's in his 50s at this point. He's had it for years, and they believe it's toward the end, perhaps, of his earthly life. And my husband was telling me that his wife, it just got to be too much. They have invariably put him in assisted living because the wife couldn't handle him anymore and would get angry as
Yeah,
much as she loves him. So dealing with anger issues on the part of the caretaker, that what we're talking about here and working at a soul level with this individual, I'm sure must help quell the anxiety and the anger that might go with the heaviness, the burden of it.
absolutely. It's huge. I still cannot believe what my father endured and how he kept showing up to really attend to every single need that my mother had. My friends would call him a saint, and
Mhm.
that was very accurate. I've never seen anything like it since or before. And what I understood, because I went to someone who channeled this for me, is that my parents had a pre-existing soul agreement this time around. In a lifetime before this one, the agreements on my father's side of things he did not fulfill. So this lifetime was his opportunity to clear that up, to serve in, it gives me the chills, to serve in ways that go beyond what you would consider possible. And he did. My gosh, did he. It's, I could write a book just on him and
Mhm.
everything he did to support my mom. But understanding that helped me to let them have their thing, because I used to try to rescue him when she would become, unkind, or, not so pretty with her words, or physically, reactive to things. I used to try to, rescue, or even prior to those outbursts, I would try to smooth things over and see where I could help. And understanding that there are some things that are really just there for them to do.
Right.
My job is not to be involved in that.
Mhm. What was, if I may ask, your age range when you were going through the thick of this? Because that has a lot, I think, to do with how it's handled.
Well, she passed when I was 40.
Okay, so you were adult.
Yes, but she was 15 years in to dementia.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. So it had been going on for quite a while. There was plenty of time for me to start off very cocky, thinking that I knew everything about
Mm,
what a healthy, relationship should involve. And then really humble myself to understanding that this goes beyond me and
right.
this is theirs.
Wow. Well, that's admirable of you to recognize, just to be able to step back. And again, because of your proclivity in this direction of being a sensitive all around, and I'm sure very obviously very empathic, but the wisdom to see what this was, this dynamic between your mom and dad, and what that was all about from a previous incarnation. So hats off to you for that, really. Wow. I want to talk. There's so much I want to get to, but let's see if I can get a few more nuggets. And we've got a little longer to go before we go to the after show. We'll tell you about that journey in a little bit. Um, let's talk about individuals that are preparing to cross over and the loved ones that are preparing for that loved one to cross over. Would it be possible for family members to learn the channeling process or communicating at the soul level to assist an individual who's crossing over? I say that, and before you answer, because I see you nodding affirmatively, I have in mind another dear friend who lost her sister at a very young age of cancer, and she told me very candidly, Alexis, I was with her, and I really believe I went to the threshold of the other side with her, not on purpose, but she found herself in another state, and uh, almost felt herself that she was going herself, but she calls it she walked her sister through or to that gate, and obviously was able to come back. So, how would one apply consciously that using this process, if at all?
Well, so much depends on how safe one feels in the exploration of this. Because for some people, the idea of channeling doesn't feel safe. It feels like who knows, but it doesn't feel safe. So if you don't feel safe, I would say don't do it
Right.
because it's going to be confusing. And channeling is not confusing; it's clarifying,
Mm.
and it's connecting points of light. It's building bridges. It's allowing for a continuation of a relationship that you've only previously known in the physical world. So if you want to, I would just, instead of saying like, how can I learn to channel my loved one who's in a very acute situation and is getting ready to cross over, because there's a lot of intensity there. I would say, how can I establish heart connection with this person? Because we all know what that is, right? We all know how to kind of feel the love and send it through the heart space to another, send this care, send this warmth. And the heart is such an intelligent organ, and it's
Absolutely.
yeah, it's built for this. So I would say, let it be your priority to maintain a heart connection with your beloved during whatever phase is, that they're going through. And the channeling piece of it, sure, you can work on that and practice that, and establish, create more confidence and competence around that with time. It does take time. It took me years, and many, many, many hours. And it's not the same for everybody, but I have yet to meet someone who's like, boom, I got it. You told me one thing and now I can do it. But we can always maintain the heart connection and establish
Mm.
and strengthen that, and listen. And if you're listening through your heart, guess what? That's channeling.
I was just gonna say, it seems like the two are they go together because
They
the heart
are.
is indeed an intelligent organ. I'm a huge fan of the work of Heart Math, and I've worked with them directly. Howard
Yes.
Martin's a good friend.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm with you 100% there. Yeah, and it seems more like a safer zone, and yet it is indicative of the channeling process for sure.
Yes.
I feel like, I'm thinking of my dad, Stephanie, and both of my parents have been gone for years. My father would have been 113 years old had he lived.
Mhm.
They had me very late. And he was at home. I was actually living with him, my husband and I both, when he was in the process of crossing over. And, let's just say we had our struggles, especially toward the end. He was defiant because he was determined to be here to be 113.
Mhm.
And he had an acute situation that took him fairly quickly. And I remember, just long story short, he was he died at home. He was in our basement area that was finished. Loved that place among his books. And I, at the time, had been on our second floor, really third floor, in the bathroom actually. And I had just left him, but I suddenly felt a connection had been made with the heart. I had a stream of consciousness, let's just say, of messages that were either coming from him or via somebody else that were his, that
Mhm.
were very reconciling,
Mhm.
counter to some of the struggles that we had when he was completely lucid. And I said, aha, I believe healing actually happened in that. We'll call it a session. It was very automatic. It was very, unannounced, but it happened
Yeah.
spontaneously.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
it's
I
possible.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, it's possible. Um, and why not? Why not just open to that possibility and see what's there? And here's the second piece, because this is where a lot of people really um, fall off, is the trust. Trust what's coming through. Trust what you're sensing. We have been taught to question ourselves, doubt ourselves, gaslight ourselves, second guess ourselves. This is no time for that.
That's
If
right.
you do that, you shut out connection.
I agree with you. I agree. We all do it. I do it. I
Mhm.
have on occasion. It's been sort of uh, spontaneously. I would call it channeled certain messages, and there's certain patterns that I've looked for, and
Mhm.
I've always questioned, okay, where did that come from? But patterns will help me gain a comfort level in this didn't come from the conscious Alexis, and it will be
Mhm.
messages coming through that I can't even measure. They come so quickly.
Hmm. Yes.
That's one measurement for me. The other is I will almost feel a physical push on my back.
Oh, yeah.
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 Cool. And
My
we all
signature.
have, there are signals that are really individual to all of us. And having said that, if you don't have something that is quite so obvious or physical or certain, that doesn't mean that what's coming through isn't real either.
Mhm.
So just go with it. Just entertain that this is a thing and that you're receiving something. And if it feels good, feels assuring, feels loving, feels warm, go with that. Trust that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So your mom, getting back to your mom, because I think that's such a beautiful and powerful story. I'm going to get the book. I'm definitely going to read it, maybe get some for friends. Since she's been gone, Stephanie, have you been able to, let's just call it download or bring through messages from her that could possibly add some context is the only word that's coming through of when she was going through this period. In other words, what
Mm.
has she been able to communicate a little bit more information about that part of her life to you? And you don't have to tell us what she said, but I'm just curious
Yeah.
as to if that happened.
No, she has no interest. And guess what? I don't either.
Wow.
I'm done with it's that's the beauty of the present moment.
Mhm.
Like
Okay, fair
we're
enough.
complete. What my mom does now is she harasses my family with a male cardinal that comes to our window every day, throughout the day, multiple times, pecking, staring, bothering us, making my dogs crazy. Every like constantly, and there's no bird feeder there at my window. There's no reason why this, there's just nothing logical about it, but she's playful like that, and cardinals were her favorite birds. And when my father passed just a few months ago, and
Oh
when
my
he
goodness.
was getting close to his passing, but I didn't yet know that that's what was coming in that short period of time, she sent about 6 or 7 birds into his screened in patio.
Oh
Okay, a screened in patio.
my
There
gosh.
are no birds' nests. There are no baby, like just birds, everywhere birds. And
Six
I
or
was,
seven? Not
yes.
just
And I came over to my dad's house and he would say to me, there's birds here again. I'm going to get a cat. What is going on with all these? So I'd go out and I'd open his patio, get the birds out. Very next day, birds are back. And so the last time I went out there, I said, "Who is this? Who's sending this?" And my mom came through and she's like, "It's me." She said
Oh
two
my god.
things. One, your dad's getting close, and I want him to know that he can fly. And two, I also just kind of want to bother and agitate him. So I told him when I was like saying goodnight to him that night, "Do you know I found out who's sending the birds?" He said, "Who is it?" I said, "It's mom." And he said, "Well, would you tell her to knock it off?"
Was he open in that way,
Yes,
Stephanie?
he was. Yeah. He would tell me, "I don't understand what you do or how you do it, but I know it's helping a lot of people and I know you're really good at it and I'm proud of you."
He sound not past tense, sounds like an incredible soul, an
Yeah.
incredible soul.
The best man I know.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a beautiful story. Well, there's a lot of lessons to be gleaned here. I don't know where we go from here and other things that you might want to share. Tell us a little bit about your work, and then we're going
Mhm.
to, excuse me, we're going to start to make our way. I always point in this direction next door to the after show. But what you offer to others that are looking to learn about this vocation, is it
Mhm.
that you do in that regard?
Yeah. So on my website, I have 2 recorded classes. One is called Yes, You Can Learn to Channel, because you can and because it's fun. And so you can get that. And the other one is a class that's focused on pendulum work, because channeling, this is how I learned to channel,
Did
is
you
by using,
really?
yes, by using a pendulum and a letterboard. So I could get the names of my guides or ancestors spelled out to me. I could get short answers to questions I was asking. And so there is a pendulum class on my website as well, showing you how to get started with learning to use and love your pendulum.
I'm a big pendulum gal, girlfriend.
Me too. I have a
I'm a
collection of them.
Yeah, so do I. So we'll be talking
they're
more.
they're magic.
That's why
They're
I'm
so
smiling like crazy. I love it. Well, we're not totally at the end yet, but we'll get all the goodies up at the web. Well, tell us the website. You can go ahead and tell us that.
sure. Yeah, it's soulinsight.com. You can also schedule private sessions, and I do teach master classes as well. So
Oh,
for
I love
those
it.
that really want to take their channeling into a stronger direction, sometimes I have professional mediums in there that take my classes. Just sometimes it's fun to have another perspective,
Hmm.
and brush up on some skills. And but you don't have to be a professional medium to take the class. I walk people through more mastery of calling this kind of energy in through a place of joy and love.
Oh, I think there are going to be a lot of people on listening to this show that would be interested. And again, going back to the impetus for why I wanted to have you on, Stephanie, that being this, I'm not going to call it an affliction. I'm going to call it a state of reality that
Mhm.
so many individuals, either directly or indirectly, are having,
Mhm.
having to do with dementia and other similar um, scenarios. There's got to be. Well, I'm going to ask you. I asked you something offline if you would do, and you said you couldn't do it without any notice. But I'll rephrase a question coming from you, if I may. Do you have an opinion as to why we're seeing, from a soul perspective, from your understanding of the metaphysical underpinning, because I believe all of reality springs from the metaphysical, of
Mhm.
why we're seeing such large numbers of these things right now?
With regards to dementia
Dementia,
specifically,
dementia, and things like Alzheimer's, for that matter.
yeah, I mean, okay, from the soul perspective, because my left hemisphere is all like coming up with data and stuff. But from a soul
Well,
perspective, it's just another way to have the human experience, right? Like dementia is no better or worse than um you name anything else really, than aphasia, than stuttering, than nonverbal, than I don't know, a broken knee. I'm not sure, some kind of malformation.
mhm,
It's we choose, I believe, our souls choose the bodies, our souls choose just on some level of the families, our souls choose kind of the time and the challenges or struggles, because we are here to grow closer to unconditional love. And we don't do that when everything is like easy and there's no challenge and we don't learn, because how can we? So this is just another modality to be a soul having a human experience, and it's not terrible. um, I'm not saying I'm a fan of experiencing it for myself. It's something we've all learned to be afraid of.
mm,
But it's, to what our minds have determined about this and said about this, there's a lot more to it than just what a person can no longer do, or how they've lost what they've lost. There are gains. There are beautiful moments to be had that I had with my mother that I would not have had without her dementia. I know
right,
this.
right.
So I kind of take the charge out of it, because that's what the soul's always, the channeling always helps me do. Take the application of what we think we know, what we are so certain of, away. And then you just have, oh, this is just another way for growth, another way to connect to love, another way to let go.
Mm. So is that in complete conflict with what the left side would say?
Well, the left side was more like looking at environmental toxins and
Mm,
things that would be caused, that we know are contributors
right.
to what's in our air, our water, our food, our land, that contribute to disruptions in the brain's circuitry.
Absolutely. And yet, in a very bizarre way, even paradoxical, it's almost like they're working in tandem.
Hmm.
It's really, it's a mind trip when you look at it from when you can look at it from both perspectives. So
Yeah.
before we close, this is just dawned on me because I'm a tree lover, I'm a nature lover, I'm a big gardener, big, 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 big time. I talk to plants, I kiss them. It's on the record. I heard a rumor that you do that from a channeling perspective, also with trees, as an example.
Oh, yeah. Trees are always wanting to talk to us. And yeah, I love channeling trees. I'm also out in my garden every day. I grow, everything grows here. Well, where you live too, it's so warm and
Absolute
tropical.
lush.
Yeah. So everything grows. I don't want to brag, but I've got quite the food forest going in my backyard, and the butterflies and the dragonflies and all the life that is just so exquisite.
Yes.
So, yes, if you feel connected to nature, and by the way, if you don't, that's learned. You can unlearn that. You can reconnect to nature because we are nature. We're
We are
not
nature.
separate
That's
from
right.
it.
100%.
Absolutely. And we have a responsibility to nature, to ourselves, to protect her, to do what's healthy, to do right by her, to all the things. Um, but yes, I love channeling trees. They have wisdom beyond what you can imagine because just picture if you sat there for 200 years, and some of them are hundreds of years old. There's some that are over 1,000 years old. What you would see, the civilizations that you would see come and go, the
Mm,
humanity, the life forms, all the things. So yes, I love channeling the trees.
I love it. Well, I suppose this would be in alignment with the whole idea of tree hugging.
Yeah.
I take this very seriously. My audience knows I've talked about a tree that I left behind in Massachusetts who was very instrumental in leading me down here, by the way. Her name is Yin.
Okay.
I grew up with her, and she's the one that I would go to, and I sat a bench right next to her for that reason to get wisdom from Yin. And I won't go into it, but we can maybe talk a little bit offline. But I think it's powerful. I could
Yeah.
almost come to tears just thinking about her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I live amongst probably close to 100 tall pines that are, as long as they stay up in the storms.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but they are powerful and wise and special. We have so much at our literal fingertips to work with, don't we,
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, listen, here's what I want to talk to y'all about. So, we're going to go next door. You know the drill. You know how it works. We go over to the after show. And this is what I had broached with Stephanie offline to see if she'd be willing to tell us about. And that is the idea of channeling individuals that are I don't want to say perfectly normal, but those that are not verbally incapacitated. Let's just say that. Let's say it's a partner that we can't reach for some reason, or a friend that we've fallen out with that we just don't get and can't understand. Might there be a couple of things that we can do proactively to start that process? And so that's what we're going to go over to Patreon, the after show, and talk about, right, Stephanie?
You got it.
Okay. This has been so incredibly powerful, uplifting, inspiring, and yeah, get up and go. This is go time, guys. I'm so appreciative for the wisdom that you brought. Girl, you're necessary. You're necessary now more than ever. So thank you so much for coming. Will you come back?
Yes, please.
Okay. I put her on the spot. What's she going to say? Oh, no. And she's got a great, she's silly like me too, which is really fun. So I love it. Stephanie Banks, thank you so kindly. And don't hang out. We're going to go right next door. I'm going to keep it going. But I want to say to the journeyers, anyone that has any questions whatsoever, by all means, go to Stephanie's website. Go get that book. There's another one coming. I'm
Yeah.
channeling.
Yeah. My next
Yes,
one is
I
going to
knew it.
teach people how to channel. Yeah.
I knew it. Just
Yeah.
had a feeling. Well, if not, there should be. So we're glad to
Right.
hear that. So go over to her website, you guys, and get all that good stuff. But in the meantime, as always, I thank you for joining me for great discussions, important discussions, always uplifting. And we will look forward to seeing you next time on Higher Journeys. Take care now. Bye.